All right. Let's go ahead and turn on our cameras. We are live. There we are. Miliana, we're good on both ends.
Sorry.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Benny Royce Rayan. I'm the Artistic Director of Evergreen City Ballet. Happy Mother's Day weekend, and also happy AAPI Heritage Month, Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. AAPI Heritage Month is celebrated in the month of May, recognizing the contributions and influence of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders to the history, culture, and achievements of the United States. Um, Here at Evergreen City Ballet, we celebrate diversity, inclusiveness, and togetherness in our community. And I'm excited to share with you today some of our brilliant students that have been part of this amazing collaboration with Newport High School Orchestra. But first of all, I want to introduce you to our music director, Barney Blau, and then we'll start there.
Hello.
Mr. Barney or Mr. Blau. So we call him Mr. Barney at Evergreen City Ballet, or ECB for short. And then at Newport High School Orchestra, they call him Mr. Blau. So for our viewers tuning in either on YouTube, which we're live right now, and we'll also push this on our Facebook page. We are going to have an engaging and inspiring conversation between our students, the musicians at Newport High School, and also the dancers at ECB. And with us today also is one of our choreographers for Dreams and Diversions, Miss Jennifer Porter, who is a part of our core faculty. I'm going to go ahead and give her a moment to say hello and welcome our audience members that are tuning in either on YouTube or on Facebook. Hello, Miss Jen.
Hello, Mr. Barney. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, dancers. Welcome. Hi, Mr. Barney. Why am I stumbling over that?
It's okay. I did it yesterday. It's like
no,
Mr. Blau on Newport, and then like here. So yesterday was quite fun and confusing, but he answers to either. How
right,
about
right. I just have such a hard time always with the Mr. I get like blah, 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 stumble over it.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's nice to see. I see musicians too.
Yay!
Yay! This is a nice big group of participants.
Yeah.
So excited to see everybody tonight.
Yeah, it's very exciting. Actually, I'm here at the school by myself, and I'm glad I picked up the phone because somebody was trying to buy tickets.
Oh.
It's like, last minute ticket buyer. Wow, we're really giving the audience that our students deserve. So we're excited to watch again tonight. So people are tuning in, just so you know, everyone. Yeah, so that's exciting. So before we begin with the conversation, let's go ahead and give an opportunity for our students to introduce themselves to the audience. Yeah, so I'm going to call you um, by your name, and then you're gonna go. So I'm gonna follow from the top of my screen. It's probably differently arranged on your end, but you're gonna say your name, who you are, what you do, level, what instrument you play, and perhaps maybe share something, one thing that's exciting. Yeah. All right, we're gonna start with my right hand man for today, Emiliano. Here we go. You start.
Hi, my name is Emiliano Rivera Patton. I am a PD at Diversions Valley. I've been dancing at ECB for I think it's 7 years now, and I'm very excited to see the production for the first time tonight.
Very good. And for those tuning in, a PD in our school is a performance division. It is the highest level. So we have programs that starts from like 20-month-old dancers. So we have like parent and talk, creative movement, and then the school division starts from level 1 all the way up to level 6. And then the performance division is our pre-professional group. We're gonna go with Ella.
Hi, I'm Ella. I'm in level 6. I've been dancing at ECB. I think I've only ever danced at ECB, so probably since I was about 4 or 5. And I was in Mr. Nathan's piece for spring production.
That's a good information to add on. And Emiliano was in Miss Perry's piece. So thank you, Ella. All right, Lauren, one of our seniors.
Hi, I'm Lauren. I'm a senior. I'm also in the performance division, and I was in Mr. Benny's piece, and I got to watch just our piece last night, and it looked really good. So I was pretty happy with it.
I hope you're watching the entire thing, right? Tonight. Good. Awesome. Very good.
So the musicians don't know what Mr. Benny's piece is. So Mr. Benny's piece was Death and the Maiden.
That's right. Ambitious.
Just so it's in music and dance, sometimes we talk slightly different languages.
That's true. and then Miss Perry's piece was. Go ahead, Emiliano.
Prokofiev String Quartet No. 2.
That's right. Yeah. So we'll need a little bit of help in terms of that, because we know by the composer, and we're we're trying to memorize the names of the track. And for our students, that's something that we're gonna dive deep in for the coming school year. Yeah, is a little bit more music in our lives. Yeah, more, because it's literally like music and dance are like sisters you can't separate. Yeah, Olivia.
Hi, I'm Olivia. I am a level 6 at ECB. I've been dancing with ECB for, I think this is my 9th year, and I was in Miss Jennifer Porter's piece.
And the music is Mr. Varney.
String Quartet No. 2. And Kevin Nam was the first violinist for that.
That's right.
And also Chelsea Sheehan was also in that piece, who's also with us here.
We're going to go ahead with Emma.
Hi, my name's Emma. I've been dancing at ECB for 3 years. I'm a level 6 this year, and I was in the amazing Miss Jennifer Porter's piece.
And that would be Schubert. Margot, I'm trying to get it. This is kind of interesting how it organized it, but we're going to get to all of the musicians as well. Margot.
Hi.
The Schubert that she was talking about was the string quartet, the string quintet.
That's right. Yeah.
Kenneth, who was on last night, played it.
Go ahead, Margot.
Okay. Hi, I'm Margot. I believe this is like my 10th or 11th year dancing at Evergreen City Ballet. Yeah, it's the only place I've ever danced at. I'm in the amazing Jennifer Porter's piece.
As you can tell, she's the favorite.
Yeah.
No, it's amazing to really observe and really feel the connection amongst our faculty and our students. So it's special. Justin, we get to go to Justin. Hi, Justin.
Hi, so I'm Justin, and I'm a senior at Newport. I'm a member of the chamber orchestra. I've been playing violin for since 5th grade, and I am the first violinist in the Death and the Maiden quartet.
I'm gonna reserve my comments later because Justin was amazing. Period. There's more.
Thank you.
And so Death and the Maiden was Mr. Benny's piece.
Thank you.
Trying to make connections.
No, this is amazing. No, help us. This is amazing.
And then, by the way, Ning, who was on last night, was also in the Death and the Maiden.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to Kevin.
Hi, yeah. I'm Kevin, and I'm in 11th grader at Newport High School, and I am also currently in the chamber orchestra. And I've been playing violin for 10 years, since 2nd grade, and I was the first violinist for the Prokofiev String Quartet No. 2.
And Prokofiev was the music used by Miss Perry. All right, Kalia.
Hi, can you hear me? Okay, I'm Kalia. I am in level 6 at ECB, and this is my first year. I've been dancing for like 10-ish years, but this is my first year at ECB, and I was in the amazing, all-powerful Jennifer's piece.
Wow.
Right, we have one more. I know, right?
Your students love you.
Voted the best. I think you bribed them, Jen. with tondus, honey. All right, Bridget.
My name is Bridget Foster. I am currently a level 6 at ECV. I've been dancing here for, I think this is my 3rd year. And I am as well also in the wonderful Miss Jen's piece.
That's awesome. Thank you, Bridget. All right, last but not the least, Chelsea.
Hi everyone, I'm Chelsea. I'm a junior at Newport High School, and I play the violin. And I've been playing violin since 6th grade, so that's like 5 years, 6 years. And something exciting for me is I'm kind of becoming a violin teacher this summer, which is super cool. And yeah, I played in the Prokofiev. I was 2nd violin for the Prokofiev.
Awesome.
Which was Miss Perry's piece.
Miss Perry's piece. And we have one more, actually. Another senior. Hi, Lydia. Last but not the least.
Hi, I'm Lydia Weston. I've been dancing at ECB for 5 years, and I'm in the performance division, and I was in Mr. Benny's piece To Death and the Maiden.
Wow, now I'm impressed.
Senior. Yeah, good for you. Hey,
High
Mr.
achiever.
Barney.
I see it.
That's right. Mr. Barney, it's really nice to hear them and share with them, how many years they've been studying on both ends. It seemed that they're pretty much similarly where they are at in their practice and study of both dance and music and dance. So that's really nice for our audience to know. The people that are tuning in, I think it's important to note that these are young artists in training. They have tackled something really impressive and challenging during this difficult time that we're living in. So just seeing the faces here via Zoom, I initially I was like, whew, more squares, but it has become part of a life. And I think, we've learned, all of us on this call have learned how to really use it to our advantage. So I'm going to start the conversation by asking Mr. Barney, or giving the opportunity to Mr. Barney to tell us how this project came about.
Well, Benny and I started talking about this a year and a half ago, I think in the fall. And, I told him about our chamber music project that we do every year. And we were really wanting to incorporate live music with the ballet again. I've been with the ballet since 2001 and have conducted Nutcracker 45 times or something like that. And and Swan Lake and Giselle and many things. And we haven't had live music for a little while at ECB. So really wanting to bring it back. And this is a really good way to do it. We've got some really talented musicians at Newport, as you'll hear tonight, and they just play so well. And to share that with the dancers, so the dancers have a chance to dance with live music, and for the musicians to get a chance to collaborate in what I call a multi-dimensional way. So oftentimes we're just doing our music on stage, you know, but when you're performing for a musical, when you're performing for a ballet, when you're performing for a show, it's a completely different, there's a completely different level of energy. And I wanted to share that with my students. And so Benny and I started talking about that. And last year in the fall, well, in January, I think maybe it was as early as November, December, when I started knowing what music the students were doing. We do a chamber music project every year. I knew what music the students were working on, and we sat around together one night and listened to all the music, of course, and we listened to all their music and picked some things that we thought would go really well with the ballet. And I shared some things that the chamber orchestra had done. And so our vision was to have the chamber orchestra in the pit, and then the dancers on the stage, and then we would have some numbers where the chamber groups would go up on stage, and we have a small quartet on stage while the dancers were dancing with the quartet on stage. And this was our vision, and I hope it comes to pass one day. But then
it will,
right? It will. And then COVID came, and we had to cancel it last year, and we just didn't have time to pivot and make it work.
That's right.
To figure out how to perform together in a virtual environment, it took us a while. It's really hard for a lot of different reasons, because and when you see these performances tonight, you'll see it's like a Zoom call where everybody's in, you know, their own little box on a screen, because they're all at home, and trying to record music and play music together when you're at home on a computer, that's really hard. So it took us a while to figure it out, but as you'll see tonight, we did figure it out. And we've got some groups that are performing virtually, recording at home, and we've got some groups that recorded together in their own homes as restrictions eased. And we have some groups that recorded in the studio with the dancers, which was super cool. And that was our vision finally coming to light, which was collaboration between the music and the dancers, and feeling that energy and the inspiration of creating art, that the music fuels the dance, and the dance fuels the music as well.
That's right. And, you know, for our viewers out there, it's one thing that Barney brought up from our pre-show talk yesterday was really, you know, this is a unique collaboration in a sense that typically ballets, you know, when you create a production between, you know, an orchestra and a ballet company, typically the request comes from the ballet, and of like, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to tackle. This was sort of kind of reverse. And what I love about this project is that Barney gave the opportunity and the agency for his students to select the music, to research. And so they really were fairly independent in that process of learning the music, researching the composer. And so I found that really cool. And, you know, I would like to figure out a way how to sort of kind of implement that as well in our first production of the year, which is Elevate. We provide also an opportunity for our young, talented dance makers to choreograph, create dances, and build their own show. So I thought, you know, these two ideas, they're matching, and it's just really we're barely scratching the surface. So I'm gonna go ahead and move forward to a question and throw it at our wonderful, most favorite core faculty of ECV, Miss Jennifer Porter. Miss Jen, you know, again, it wasn't, you know, it hasn't been an ideal time for us to create and to teach and to connect and engage with each other. How was the artistic process, creative process for you, and the artistic collaboration? What were some challenges, and what were some like exciting discoveries that you found?
Well, it was challenging for me because the music wasn't music that I would have picked if I were given the, the universe of music. And I'm thankful for that because I ended up loving this music. I mean, I love it. And it spoke to me after all. I had to listen to it a lot. And there's a thing that choreographers talk about sometimes called choreographic magic, which is like sometimes it's weird, but try it, dancers. Sometime you could take a piece of choreography and mute it and then play other music on top of it. And sometimes it works. It's the weirdest thing. And there's also, I don't know, I just noticed the choreographic magic a little bit. Sometimes when I would have movement and then I would have the girls do it, and I wasn't thinking about it fitting, which is not really a good way to choreograph, but I was also feeling pressure, time pressure, and all of my dancers were injured at some point except Bridget, all of them. I think they're still injured. So when you watch my piece, keep that in mind. And my girls are also really young, right? I mean, from 13 to, I think do we have a 16-year-old? Yeah, but the rest of them 13, 14. I mean, they're very young. So comparing to the musicians that played for us, because I think most of you guys were seniors, I think. And I think that was
piece. They were all senior.
Yeah.
It's a senior.
So it's just interesting. And then there was the issue. I had a big issue. The dancers and I had an issue with the tempos, and that was probably the most challenging thing. Was I'm creating to this tempo, which I knew wasn't going to be the tempo, but normally you have the orchestra's tempo, or they have your tempo, or whatever it usually happens. And then the fact that we didn't get to work with them, but Mr. Barney heard my desperation on the Thursday night and said, I'm going to see if I can get some musicians to come and stop by on, via Zoom on Friday during the dress rehearsal. Because to me, I was like, we're not going to have a dress rehearsal with the musicians. And a couple of them came and they listened, and when we filmed on Saturday, and the dancers will back me up on this, we were all prepared to be flustered and frustrated, do our best, and with the tempo was fabulous. It was, and one of you guys, I forget which one of you musicians, said to me, yeah, I don't know if we could have done this without having the dancers there and the adrenaline. Not that you couldn't have played the piece, obviously you always played it well, but you had been rehearsing at a different tempo, It was
Maggie that said that.
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, dancers, weren't you so impressed? Because we were scared, a little scared. And, but again, that's live theater, and we were going to do our best and, hopefully meet in the middle, but they came to us, and, it was just kind of like me going. So I was really, that was my biggest challenge. And that was also the biggest reward, was that it really ended up, being satisfying and being able to have the live music and to meet, student musicians who are that talented, you guys.
Yeah, I actually echo that sentiment in terms of just the challenges and also the discoveries. I think for our audiences, it's important for us to share with you that it has been a very challenging year for everyone. So on the dancer end, and this is across the board too, professionals, dancers that are in college, or our students or pre-professional students, we have been fortunate, and humbly so, I say, that successful in figuring out a system for us to be able for our students to do both in-person study and also virtual study. So, that's not really ideal for dancers, and I can also imagine probably the same for musicians. Both realms, dance and music. When we rehearse with groups, it's really hard to do that by yourself. And when you're toggling between the studio and the virtual world. So, that's sort of kind of where the injuries come about. And we're trying to, gradually train and cross-train and uplift our students in that manner. But I also just want to share a comment in one of our, I think, YouTube or Facebook. Marley Larimer says, "Wonderful job, musicians. I didn't know until last night I like Schubert." So, Mr. Barney, we're turning some people into like classical music lovers, and I really love that.
Well, let me speak to that just a little bit because, one of the differences between music and dance is that I think when you choreograph to dance, tempo makes a big difference because you create the steps, you create the movement to work at a certain speed. And music doesn't necessarily work that way. We often start slower, and as we learn the music and become more familiar with it, we gradually get faster and faster. This happens in the theater too when we get into rehearsals in the theater, and oftentimes the first rehearsal in the theater with the orchestra, things are a little bit slower than the dancers are used to, and then as we go through the dress rehearsals, we match our tempos, we work things out, and we come up to the tempo. And I'm always talking with the dancers, communicating with the dancers. I think, to be honest, I think it's one of my strengths with being a ballet music director is being able to communicate that way with the dancers. And then we find that tempo, we work together to make it happen. And we wanted to try and recreate that a little bit. So as we were doing this, I would give the choreographers rehearsal recordings, and it didn't match. It didn't match their professional recordings, of course, because this is a work in progress, But what happens is that then the dancers have to respond. Of course, it caused a little panic, unfortunately, for Miss Jennifer. This is part of the process that happens almost all the time, and even when we're live on stage. And so the musicians continue to get more familiar with the piece. The tempo comes up. We communicate about the tempos, and then finally we come to that performance, and everything comes together, and it seems like magic, But we tried to emulate that a little bit. If we had just given a performance for you to practice with, then it would have been just like rehearsing with a recording. It would have been exactly the same every time, and there would have been no change in your response over time, right? So we tried to emulate that a little bit, and I'm sorry it caused a little frustration at times, but this is the rehearsal process. It's weird to do it online when it takes so much longer for us to share and you to respond. Normally that would happen in an hour in a rehearsal, but now it happens over a course of weeks, to create and share and respond.
And I think it's also another important thing to note for our audience out there that, again, we're creating in a very, very unique time. And, I've been privileged enough to have Mr. Barney when I started at Evergreen City Ballet. So I completely, share the same sentiment in terms of just the creative process and the relationship between the live rehearsal from the dancers and the live rehearsals with the musicians. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, we didn't have that, and the short production schedule and all that thing. So, we're barely scratching the surfaces, and this is something we want to bring to both groups. Hopefully next year, we get to do this in person, where we actually can have them here in our space. Mr. Barney and I actually we're trying to work hard on bringing the going through all the permissions to bring Newport High School, and the day came and it was magical. But I do want to give an opportunity to one of our seniors, Lydia, because I think she's a bit time bound for today. As you can see, she's in a car. So I'm going to ask her a question. Can you share us a little bit more about the difference in, since we're in the music topic, obviously, the difference of rehearsing with the with the recording, and also arriving to the point in the filming where you heard the live music. How did that impact you? How did that make you feel? Did it change your dancing in any way?
Yeah, so originally with the recorded music, that was the original tempo that we learned it on. And so for us, that was just normal. That's what we were used to. And so then when we get the recording with the musicians, there are bits that sound different, and there are bits where the timing is slightly off, which is natural because obviously it's not the same group of people playing the music, but I think in a way it was nice because for us, we had to learn how to listen to the music better and match our dancing to the music instead of just doing like what we know and going from like muscle memory kind of. So I think for us, it helped us grow as dancers because we had to learn to really listen to the music and be on top of it. And then again, when we moved to like having the orchestra actually there with us in person, I think just them being there and like hearing the music live, like it sounded amazing. And I think it really fueled us to dance better because we had like that energy coming in from them. And like just hearing the music live was just like, it was just so different. And it was so nice to be able to dance to that. And I think it really did help us perform better. So yeah.
I definitely saw the response, and since we're on that topic, I had tasked myself after Barney and I, decided on, all right, so this is how it's going to go. These are the works that the musicians are working on. Get started on that, and I had thought, hey, we're creating during this time, and we have to really go at the root of things between the music and the dance, which is, you said it, Lydia, respond. How do you respond to music, right? And so giving the opportunity and exploring the opportunity to respond to music and compare it on our end, it was a study of comparing, all right, you're responding to recorded music. And then all of a sudden you're responding to live music. And it was really thrilling to watch the dancers feed off of each other and also the musicians feed off of each other. Mr. Barney, I'm going to give you the opportunity to ask a question to one of our musicians. We'd love to hear from them.
Yeah, I'd like to ask Chelsea, because Chelsea is also a dancer and a musician. And I think I'd like to hear from her perspective. Having been on both sides, how did it feel to be one of the musicians that the dancers were responding to in this way?
Yeah, it was super interesting. Because as a dancer, my music is always set and tempos are steady. It feels really reliable. But as a musician, I now have the responsibility of like getting everything in tempo, being able to follow the dancers. It was just really cool being on the musical end because that usually never happens for me. And just to clarify, I do hip hop, not ballet. But ballet is just it's just so beautiful watching the dancers and being able to play music for them.
Yeah, thanks, Chelsea.
Thank you, Chelsea.
I think another cool thing about this project is, Benny, you alluded to it earlier, is that normally, like as a music director, okay, it's Nutcracker time. We're going to do Nutcracker. Well, the music's set. That's what we're going to do. Or, okay, Barney, we've decided to do Giselle. So put together an orchestra and we're going to do Giselle. Well, this is a little bit different because we're working with high school musicians, and it's not like we can just tell them to go do this or go do that, and they're working on chamber music and it's their own music. And the cool thing about this project is that they pick the music, and for me, one of the most important things about our chamber music project is developing independent musicians, and I want them to form their own groups and pick their own music and study the music, do the background research, study the score, plan the rehearsals, do all that together. So what you may not realize is that Green City Ballet did not pick this music.
Nope.
The students picked this music. This is their music. And then the choreographers listened to all the different musical offerings that we had and then chose certain ones that they wanted to work with. And I think it'd be interesting to hear from the musicians. How did you choose the music that you wanted to perform? And also from the choreographers, how did you decide which piece that you wanted to choreograph? How about Kevin? Can we hear from Kevin?
Before we do that, Barney and Kevin, we do have to say goodbye to Lydia because her phone's about to die and I think she has to head on to her event.
Hi, Lydia.
But Lydia, congratulations. Watch it tonight. I'm so proud of you. Okay, and thank you so much for tuning in and being so ever so eloquent. I'll see you next week.
Thank you all. Bye.
Bye, Lydia.
All right. Mr. Barney, can you repeat the question again?
Well, so I'm just interested to hear how the musicians chose the music that they wanted to perform, and then also how the choreographers chose pieces from our offerings that they wanted to work with as well. So, Kevin.
Yeah, so I was like, I originally chose music like a couple years ago. We actually performed the first movement for the solo ensemble competition, which is a chamber music competition held sometime in January, where you kind of like compete for a place in state. And I kind of found it just by like, it was just in my recommended, and I listened to it and I got like immediately hooked on it. I was in a phase of like listening to a lot of 20th century Russian composers like Stravinsky, Shostakovich, Prokofiev, and it just appeared. It just, you know, it just sounded really nice, and I really liked it. So I asked Chelsea if we could like form a group and, you know, play the piece. Like we played the first movement first, and then we liked it so much that we decided to play the third movement as well, which is what we actually did for this concert. So yeah, that's kind of like how I found the piece and how I decided, you know. Yeah.
Kevin, you have a very good taste in music. All those composers you said, I was like, wow, for your age to be into those kind of music. I'm
actually a music composer myself, so I listen to a lot of different pieces to get like ideas and study scores. So it's kind of like, I guess I have like a diverse taste, I guess.
Maybe next year, one of our pieces might be written by Kevin. You never know. That would be amazing.
The coolest idea ever. And you know, being surrounded by musicians and composers when I was attended the Juilliard many moons ago. I know, right? This is just really impressive to hear. And obviously also like having had the pleasure to hear all the groups play live in our black box was such a treat. Such a treat.
So the thing I wanted to point out about this is what's really interesting is I've never had a group do a piece that Kevin chose before, Quartet number 2. And I probably wouldn't have chosen it myself. And what's really amazing about this is that Kevin chose it, and we all got to appreciate this piece, which is a wonderful piece because Kevin chose it. You know, not just Kevin, but Kevin and Chelsea and their whole group. And to me, that's the beauty of involving the students in the creative process, you know, and we all learn and grow from each other, and that's a really cool thing. Justin, what about you? How did your group choose your piece?
Yeah, so actually we were originally deciding on a Haydn piece, something that was slightly easier, but you know, after consideration, we chose Death and Maiden, or Mr. Benny's piece, but mainly because we wanted to push ourselves, you know. Going into senior year, we kind of want to just do something just light and, you know, fun, have fun together, but you know, you can also just have fun, but also, you know, challenge yourself. And you know, we picked a piece that will best show like the group's ability, and I think it did.
That's awesome. Hey, Mr. Barney, we have another time-bound guest, so I want to go back to that, Justin. Yeah, because I want to dive into and segue it into giving the choreographers. I'm choreographed obviously as well. Dive into our Schubert piece, but one of our seniors, Lauren, is here. It's a busy Mother's Day weekend, so we're fortunate to have had all of you right now join us. So this is awesome. Lauren, how was your experience with the entire project? You know, I mean, as a senior, you know, have you done anything like this before where you're dancing to live music?
In the past, like 3 years ago, I think, for one of our Nutcracker performances, we had, I think, like 2 shows with a live orchestra. And it was beautiful. The music was gorgeous. The dancers just had a little bit of a problem just because the music was super speedy. So we had to speed up all of the movements. So like we were all talking about earlier with the tempo, it's it's difficult when it changes up, but I mean, we're fast, we can pick it up pretty quickly. So but the whole experience was very exciting and very different. I've never really been into like instruments, so I think I played guitar for like 6 months and then stopped because it was hurting my fingers. So musical instruments just haven't really been my thing, but listening to the music being played is just, it's just so magical to me. I've always loved music, and live music just fills my heart with all of this like joy and love, and just hearing it just makes me want to dance. And it was just so fun, and it was exciting, and just it was just so cool. It was just cool.
And just seeing you right now share that, it's genuine, it's authentic, and that's what Mr. Barney and I are trying to get to provide you all these experiences for both groups, for both sides. So it's sounding like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's sounding like you're saying that there is a give and take in terms of the relationship in the rehearsal process between music and dance, right? I know that we brought about tempo, a lot in this conversation, but do you feel that's true, that there is a give and take in terms of the interacting between the two?
Yeah, just like Lydia was saying too, in the studio, the music, I mean, we listened to the professionals play it so many times that we got used to that tempo. And then when we hit the live music, we needed to make that adjustment so we could be prepared, along with the musicians also prepared for what we're doing on stage as well. Yeah. So there's a difference there.
Lauren, which piece were you in?
I was in Death and the Maiden.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Schubert. Speaking of Schubert, Miss Jen and I both had Schubert. So when we were doing this sort of kind of curating and seeing, what potentially we could pick or present to the choreographers, the 4 choreographers, I presented that in an email, and then we had a meeting. So Miss Jen, in terms of I know this wasn't, you didn't pick the music, but in listening to the options, how did you come about in terms of, sharing with me what pulled you or what you were interested in? What were some deciding factors for you that you're like, you know what, I will tackle that one?
Well, this is an odd reason to pick music, but I had in my head, because I'm always choreographing, and I had in my head some feet going like this. And so when I listened to music, I did it backwards. I was like, what music would, I didn't know what I was going to do, but I just had in my mind, and it fit. So I didn't know even how much it would fit, but there was that little bit. And at the end of the day, I may not have even used those moves. A lot of times that happens to me. I'll have an idea, like wake up with an idea of choreography, and then it goes away, or else it's just dumb when I see it done, but it sounded good to me. So I actually chose that music because I could see the feet doing that, which is, I will admit, is a very odd way to pick music. But, when you're offered this feast of different music, for me it gets overwhelming, because I like Lauren, I love music, and I love live music, and I've worked with live orchestras my entire professional career, and I love it because the energy of live versus taped or recorded, there's energy, there's other people, and then you can show off for them as much as for the audience. They can show off for you, and it's kind of like recognition of talent, skill, and hard work, a mutual kind of like, I see you, but having all those choices was a little overwhelming for me as well, because I wanted to give the attention that each piece deserved, but I couldn't, because my head was going to explode, and then when you have to make a decision, it's like,
That's our curse as a choreographer, right? Like once you're given something, it's like your brain starts to imagine the music, right? And so there's saying of like, when we and I think it's been mentioned by most of us, all of us actually, we want to see the music and we want to hear the dance. Before we dive into that, it's a beautiful offering. We have to say goodbye to Lauren because she also has Mother's Day planned. So Lauren, super proud of you. Congratulations. Enjoy the film tonight after dinner, and I'll see you next week. Let's wave
Thank
to her.
you so much.
Bye, Lauren.
So yeah, in terms of the Schubert, and then I would like, after I sort of kind of piggyback off of Miss Jen here, I'd like to hear from our other dancers as well. But I've had the pleasure of tackling ambitiously Death and the Maiden. Jen, I did not know what I was stepping into when I was like, oh yeah, I love this. And I was like, uh-oh. And I think at one point we were like, do you have the slow section too in the middle of your piece? And I'm like, yes, what are we gonna do? I don't know. I don't know, but let's just respond to it, right? There was this one week, Barney, when we were like, they all came to me and was like, so I have an issue. I'm like, there's this slow section in the music. And I'm like, me too. So, it's really, that's one of sort of the fun challenges. And as a choreographer, similar to Miss Jen, I've had many choreographic projects from college environments to professional companies. Oftentimes, I actually yes, I'll bring an idea, but sometimes it's not my choice. It's part of a theme, right? So tackling this was really cool. Schubert, let's talk about a little bit more of the music. Schubert was an underdog from my research, right? He didn't really become popular until later on, right? I see Justin's head nodding. So I want you to dive into this because Justin, and I mean, what a gift, the entire quartet, the way you were cueing the group, man, that was some professional skills, bro. Like, what? To me, I was like, all right, he's got his stuff, So can you talk a little bit about the music of Schubert? Because it's so dramatic, and that's why I was pulled to it. So that was my reason for choosing it. Because if you can't tell by now, a little dramatic here. I love drama. But so Schubert was a perfect fit for me, so.
Right. So, I mean, as Mr. Benny said, Schubert was an underdog because, everyone knows the big musical titans like Mozart, Beethoven, or Bach. Even if you're a non-musician, you know those. But when you think about, musical titans, you don't think of Schubert, right? But, his music are truly influential. And he focused on a lot of human emotions like love, jealousy, and loss. And, in Death and Maiden, he captures these two themes of, death and also, the maiden, almost like the innocence, right? And I just learned this a couple of days ago. I think this was actually the last three quartet he composed before he unfortunately passed away at a very young age. And those are his,
31?
masterpiece. Yeah, at 31. So very young, like younger than Mozart too. So yeah. That's just, it's really unfortunate, but the music in his later years were just unforgivable.
In a sense, it kind of like matches, like it kind of makes you think, what fuels creativity for people, right? What pushes us to create? Where are we in our lives? Death and the Maiden, he completed that towards the end of that journey for him because he was sick, right? He was
right. So he was suffering from just illness, and just basically he's near his end of his life, and he was just kind of in that state.
Yeah. Thank you, Justin, for that offering. And again, we have another busy bee. Chelsea is going to leave us fairly soon, but let's hear from her a little bit before she leaves for dinner. Go ahead, Chelsea.
So with my piece, the unique aspect of it is that it's modern and it has this complexity to it. So the first time Kevin and I were listening to the piece, it just felt really, it just didn't feel like a ballet piece, if you know what I mean. But the more we listened to it, the better it got, because we started to understand how it worked and like why it was so complex. So playing it definitely helped because we each have different parts, and fitting that together was super intricate. And then the coolest part was putting it together with the dancers and seeing how the choreographer interpreted the music. I just thought it was really beautiful, the way it ended up like fitting together. And when Mr. Blau sent us the link to an original video of the dancers, I was just so blown away because of the way it was created. Yeah, the choreography was amazing.
You hear that? Go ahead.
Yeah, that's all. I just thought the choreography was absolutely amazing. And I'm so happy to be a part of this.
Thank you. And you're not a senior yet, are you?
No, I'm a junior this year.
Yes, one more year. All right, Chelsea, thank you so much for joining us today. I know that it's a busy weekend, but it's a pleasure to see you again. And yeah, have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Bye, Chelsea.
Bye, everyone.
Let's hear from some of our dancers. Miss Jen, do we have a question for them? Maybe, maybe Emma or Olivia, maybe your dancers. Yeah.
All of my awesome and amazing dancers. Let me just say, I love you guys because we went through a lot of that, right? How did you guys feel about, I was always saying, I'm asking a lot of you, and I'm asking, and then when I watched the piece, I was like, it doesn't look like like you guys were trying to do anything that was even hard for you. Like you just sort of got into it. So any one of my dancers can answer, but like it was challenging, right? But it wasn't like, what is she talking about, right? Go ahead, who's gonna speak? Margot, go.
Okay. So I feel like, yeah, it was really challenging during like the first rehearsals. It was so stressful, especially because most of us were injured. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be like back to normal by the time of filming. So it was really stressful about that. And so I feel like once we were filming, it didn't quite feel as difficult, especially compared to like the first rehearsal, because you're like so anxious. And then when you do it, when you're like filming it, you're not really thinking about how difficult it is. It's kind of just like, okay, what's next? What do I need to do? And it's just like your brain just trying its best. But I feel like it definitely challenged us. It's definitely not something that we've done before. It wasn't like classical ballet, which we usually do. It was very much like everything like off balance. But I feel like if you compare our first rehearsal to the filming, you can see a big difference because of like how much we worked on it and everything you like taught us.
And what about the music? The music was challenging, and then the tempo at the end was challenging. Like any of you guys can hop in there and comment on that, on both of those things. Like, I mean, did you have the same experience as I did as far as like, yeah, it was nice, and then I started to love the music, and then we'd finish rehearsal and I'd still be hearing the music for like an hour afterward. Okay, I'll stop talking and like.
It's okay.
Yeah, I definitely think like first it was kind of like intimidating to hear how fast the music was, because I was like, whoa, I have to dance to this, like, so I definitely was like, okay, it's gonna be something I'm gonna have to work really hard on. But I definitely agree with Margot. Like, I think if you were to look back at our first rehearsal and kind of how everything was going, and we have film, like we could. So I think if we were to like play that video next to like the final film, I think we'd see just like a huge difference of how we were all kind of just kind of embrace kind of how off balance and different all the movement was from what we normally do. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to just kind of do something different. And
that's good. Was that the last word? I'm sorry. I think you're kind of cutting off, but yes, agreed. No, it's okay. This is, like live performance, anything can happen via Zoom. but yeah, I'm glad that you had fun. We do have to say to Kevin, and we do have to wrap it up a bit. Before we wrap it up, I want to hear from Ella because she's the only one in Mr. Nathan's piece. And then I'm going to check in with my assistant over here, Emiliana, to see if there's any questions on the chat. But Kevin, any last thoughts before you depart? Kevin?
I think he already left.
Oh, okay. Wow. So my squares are different. So sorry. All right. Am I the only one? It's freezing on my end now too. Uh-oh. Okay. So Ella. Yeah. Anything to to share with us? Share about, how Mr. Nathan created his piece, how, how you guys, how everybody in your team responded to the music. How was the experience like?
Yeah, our piece, we didn't have the privilege of live music, but it was still really interesting to be able to work with Mr. Nathan because the music we had was really sharp and precise, and something that Nathan had told us at the beginning um of our rehearsals was that he liked to choreograph and like went through the music just with feeling the music and didn't like to count. But what we all had to work together on was being able to meet the preciseness and sharpness of the piece, uh, like with our movements and having to learn how to like use our counts and things. And then we also had the opportunity to like express and emote through the music and try and show a character and show feeling throughout because we I think like you were mentioning earlier, we had a slow chunk in the middle. So the emotions he wanted us to convey were like this roller coaster, but we had to make it all seem fluid and the same, but also have like variation because the music varied so much. And I don't know, it was really fun. And I think my whole group, we just had a good time. And it was really difficult, but we enjoyed it a lot.
Another challenge also because you were tackling Mendelssohn, right? Mendelssohn's really good with those motif and structures and that precision that you were talking about. And it read really well also with Mr. Nathan, really interpreting the musical motifs. Again, it's going back to that hearing the dance, listening to the music. So, Emiliana, are there any questions on the chat or any more comments before we wrap it up? I do want to provide an opportunity for Kaylia and Bridget also to speak, but are there any comments or questions? Not yet. So our audience out there, you are feel free to ask us a question or two. We are out of time, and we would love to do this longer next time. We dive into this, and this is a passion for us, both musicians and dancers. So, Kaylia, our newest member of the school, have you ever done anything like this before?
No, I came from a very classical, strict ballet school. It was very ballet only unless you're doing competitions. So this was very like challenging for me because I was so used to that structure of ballet, and this like really pushed my limits on like how much I could bend, and especially like with my injuries, like how much could I do without hurting myself. And it was very different, but it was also really fun because I really took a lot away from this experience, which I think will really help me grow as a dancer. So
that's awesome to hear. Thank you, Kaylia. We'll talk about the injury in a bit because I'm gonna kind of ask, Justin, what kind of injuries musicians have. But Bridget, anything to add or share with us, the audience that are watching out there?
Not so much, but it was definitely new because prior to coming to ECV, I actually was a competition dancer and not really accustomed to like live music, and I'm not really accustomed to definitely doing like more contemporary styled things like on point. I thought that was really cool and I've seen it done before, but I never really thought I would have the chance to do it myself. So I'm really thankful that I was able to experience that and I actually really like it. So
Mr. Barney, it seems like we are loving the live music aspect of this, so we have to give this back again. So, Olivia, we haven't heard from you. Would love to hear from you.
Hello there.
Yeah, right. So Miss Jen, let's talk about Miss Jen's choreography a bit and her response to the music. Quirky, right? Quirky, off balance, off kilter, lots of personality, right? So how was that journey for you? Definitely.
This was such a great experience because, like, again, mainly strictly classical dancer here, but then with this like aspect of neoclassical from Miss Jen was just such a fun experience because, like, in a way you were more free, but it was also a lot more challenging because, like, you were able to stretch out more, you were able to, like, not exactly throw yourself around because you shouldn't do that, but like you were able to just like be more free, I guess, because like it's just not that hard, strict. You got to be very technical. You got to be here and here because like there was a lot of like flowing from one thing to another, and then there was that like stillness at sometimes, and it was just such a great experience. And I really feel so honored I got to work with the wonderful Jennifer.
Did you feel like you were able to use your technique, what she was telling you in class, to support what you're supposed to not do that she's asking for when she's creating?
I don't exactly understand what you're saying.
So, like she tells you, we tell you all the time like this, right? Yes. And then when she creates, Miss Jen's like off kilter, quirky, right? How's that like?
So that's definitely a challenge because there are a lot of things where we had to like tilt back, like kind of push our pelvis out more. And then, but in ballet, you can't do that. Mm-hmm. So like, it was definitely a challenge, but it was a great challenge to take on. It was great.
Very good.
Can I just say, you guys got it. You got it. Just what you said there about like throwing yourself around, but you can't really throw yourself around. It's the feeling of like, I think that kind of dancing and interpreting music is like the joy of dancing. It doesn't mean you're just like doing interpretive dance and like throwing yourself around and not wearing shoes, which is all fine too, but that's not my thing. And like, that's exactly what it's hard to say that in words of throwing yourself around, but you're still doing it with technique and with restraint. Or you have no restraint, but you're doing it with discipline. I don't really know, but you got it. It's hard to explain, but all of you guys got it. And I hope you see that when you see yourselves perform to the music, to the live music that we thought would be too slow, but didn't end up being too slow. You guys were great. And the musicians were great.
Yeah, no, and totally, Jen. And thank you so much for trusting the process, Jen and dancers. I really appreciate it. Justin, what sort of injuries do musicians have, if any?
Yeah, so I think that musicians definitely don't have like injuries as frequent as, say, dancers from what I learned. But definitely for those who are really pushing like the limit of practice, I know a couple years ago, one of our piano players actually got tendonitis from just trying to like practicing hours and hours every single day, tried to record for I think audition or something, but it was really unfortunate. Violinist also has almost like they call it the violin hickey, but it's something here. It's not that bad, but there's also just it probably never if you're practicing. But just one more thing is just musicians just tend to be a little bit more careful around like their fingers or so on. I know early in my career or violin career, I was actually a basketball player. but I worked with the Simon James. He's the assistant concertmaster, and he just told me basketball and violin don't mix well together. And yeah, that's something.
Yeah, no. It's like dancers don't go skiing, right? So
Yeah.
we can relate. That's awesome. That's so cool to hear. Mr. Blau, any other like sort of kind of things like that where you know musicians journey through their entire career in terms of, you know, taking care of your body, injuries, fatigue? Like what do you all go through?
Well, you know, we work, and I have friends, of course, in the Seattle Symphony, and we work with some of our coaches. One of our coaches, Cecilia Buss, for example, is in the Seattle Symphony. And, you know, if you talk to Seattle Symphony musicians, when they're playing every day, all day long, you dancers, they do get injuries, some injuries from tension, and they have to battle against tension. We want intensity in our music, but not tension. And this is, you know, one of the things that we for, and it becomes more and more important. And your posture and position, sometimes students don't always understand why we're talking so much about posture and position, but later on it affects you. If you're not sitting correctly, or if you have that tension and you're playing, then you do start to get these injuries like Justin was talking about, you know, repetitive motion and tendonitis and different things like that. And Cecilia actually even had an injury in the middle of our coaching, a bicycle accident, and broke her arm and had to have surgery. And, you know, these kinds of things happen too. And you know, for her, that's a big deal because, you know, then she can't play if she breaks her arm. And so these, like you said, with skiing, you know, you got to start being smart with your body. And, you know, I got to be honest, I don't go skiing, you know, the month before Nutcracker. Because if I break my arm, what's going to happen?
True.
I'm not going to be able to conduct. So you have to start being more aware of these things and definitely taking care of your body, you know, treating your body right.
Yeah.
I actually, sorry. I just have a very interesting one that I just thought of. I don't know if I'm not a brass player myself, but I heard, this is what I heard, that brass players before a concert, they want to avoid like spicy food or anything that will numb up their lips or so. But Mr. Blau, you can confirm on this, but I just thought it was also a kind of interesting thing.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, brass playing is very physical, and we probably have more endurance issues as brass players than you know, string players. String players have more tendonitis issues, but brass players endurance and, you know, the soft tissue in your lips, you know, that you have to take care of, and you get hit in the mouth, and that can be a big deal. And, you know, I don't like to eat actually 2 hours before a performance. You know, I've got to eat at least 2 hours before, because if I'm too full, I can't breathe right, you know, and breathing is so important for, you know, performing on a wind instrument. So, you know, all these little different intricacies, and when you start talking to musicians and the different instruments, like Justin kind of mentioned here, it depends on your instrument, and there's different things for different instruments that we have to become aware of. And I'm sure that's true with dancers as well.
I'm not going to ask them what their diet is pre-performance. We haven't gotten there yet, and we're out of time. But what I can share with everyone is that it's very similar. Actually, you know, especially on tour, if you're touring, you really got to watch what you eat, because when you're in a touring company, it's convenience is probably like the first thing you go to, right? Because like you're tired, you know, blah, blah, blah. But for me, it's soup, you know, an hour before, an energy drink, because you can't be too full. Also, you know, the same thing, you can't be too full. And as Mr. Blau said, being able to really feel your body, fully engaging your body when you're moving or when you're playing that instrument, right? It's really important for us to have all of that, right? So
the funny part about that, Benny, I just a quick add-on is that this is why you often see musicians going out to eat after.
That's right.
Because they're hungry, not only from the performance, but because they didn't eat for a couple hours before the performance, right? And so this is, And then musicians go out after the performance, get home late, and then that's where our reputation is.
We gotta, Barney, we gotta ask our Seattle Symphony friends where they eat after the shows. That would be interesting. So
I can tell you offline.
that's awesome. I think I have an idea. But dancers and Kevin, I'm sorry, we're out of time. But we Jen, I know I'm so sorry. The beautiful thing about this new age though, is that we did say that performance is 7:30, but it's a suggested viewing time. So I do want to release the students because I know they have Mother's Day plans and dinners and things like that. But thank you so much for tuning in. Yes, and Mr. Barney as well. Thank you so much for tuning in. For our viewers out there, thank you so much for your support. We can't do this without your support. So if you're interested in finding out more about our organizations, at ECB, our website is www.evergreencityballet.org. You can find out more about our classes, programs, and also our events. This is pretty much our last biggest production of the year. We have season finale, and that's a year-end showcase. We are open this summer, limited space in terms of in-person instructions for our summer program. So go ahead and visit our website and check that out. For Newport High School Orchestra, you can visit their website to know more about their programs as well and what they're up to. And Mr. Blau is going to give you that information.
Well, our chamber music concert, we're getting ready to release that, and that's going to be an all virtual, all digital thing, because that's how we created it, because we're still at home. Now we're back at school. We're really excited to be back at school. We're rehearsing in person. We're getting ready for our final performance. The last concert of the year is always very exciting for our seniors because it's their final concert, and it's our chance to celebrate them and say goodbye. So two of our musicians who played in Miss Jennifer's piece are seniors and graduating and are doing a solo duet, Symphonia Concertante by Mozart with the orchestra. We're hoping to perform it live. We're planning to perform it live on our stage at Newport with a very limited audience of just parents, and that's going to be on June 3rd. We hope. If we have to go outside, we will. It may be on the football field, but we're hoping that it's going to be in the concert hall, and that's what we're really planning for, because that's what's going to make it the best. But
very quickly, Mr.
Up on June 3rd, and then that's going to be the end of our year.
Very quickly, Mr. Blau, where can they find out about that information for our viewers out there?
Oh, that will be on our website, sono-newport.org, and SONO stands for Supporters of Newport Orchestra. So that's our parent boosters have that website. And
awesome. Very good. All right, 10 seconds, Jen. Last parting words. I think you had something to say. Parting words.
I just, when we were talking about eating, I was just wishing that we could all have a big cast party. Like that's the normal thing when you're done and you worked hard, and maybe you had arguments, going in and out, and people got frustrated, and maybe someone cried, like whatever. Then you perform, and then you have a party. And I wish we could have done that with the musicians and then all of us grown-ups. And so I'm having a virtual cast party with you guys. Like it's just fun at the end to just like eat and drink and say we did a good job. So that was it.
All right. Yes, soon enough. Yeah, after this entire experience is done. So stay safe out there, everyone. Yeah, thank you so much for the diligence in terms of following all the protocols to make all this happen. Justin, thank you so much for your insight. Dancers, this, Miss Jen, and everybody else in the team here at Evergreen City Ballet, we are super proud of you. Beyond. And Barney, thank you. So happy to be working.
All of you.
All right. Have a great evening, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.
Bye.